Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another episode review from the classic 90s Goosebumps TV show. This episode came out in season 3. It was written by Rick Drew and directed by John Bell, and the story in question is Don't Go to Sleep. Now I have here the Scarecrow Walks at Midnight DVD, but if you turn it over on the back, you'll see Don't Go to Sleep is included on this collection here. So I'll be using this DVD as a point of reference for the episode for the review. Now, Don't Go to Sleep is one of those episodes that is quite well known in the Goosebumps community. It's almost kind of mythical at this point, I would say, because it's associated with this certain YouTuber known as JonTron. And JonTron, years ago, talked about 3 episodes on his channel, which were My Harry's Adventure, Ghost Beach, and this one here. And those videos tickled the heartstrings of 90s nostalgia heads out there and fans of Goosebumps alike. And people still talk about those videos today and how funny they were and just how important they were in Goosebumps YouTubedom as a whole. And I remember the first time I watched this episode was around the Cartoon Network days when the network started to re-air the old Fox Kids show. I found it and I got back into Goosebumps a bit from my childhood, and it started with like Piano Lessons Can Be Murder, and I think it gravitated me towards Don't Go to Sleep's book as well around that time. And I can't remember if I watched the episode or read the book first. I want to say I watched the episode and then thought how crazy it was, and then I read the book. I want to say it was that order. But I remember thinking as a kid that this episode was wild and out there. And when you watch JonTron's review and other people's review of this episode, you're often going to hear this sentiment that this episode is just bonkers. It is crazy. There's a lot of things in this episode that shouldn't work here. And in a lot of regards, many people have noted that this is a bad episode, just on a technical level or even for kids' horror standards. But over the years, I've seen a lot of people start to come out of the woodwork with these so bad it's good opinions. And Don't Go to Sleep's episode seems to have one of the strongest so bad it's good audience out there in the community just for any Goosebumps story. As a matter of fact, I'm currently working on a video talking about the top 5 most popular so bad it's good Goosebumps stories in existence. And Don't Go to Sleep's episode seems to be a popular sentiment where people recognize that it's a bad episode, technically. But it's weirdly charming at the same time. And in my opinion, after watching it for this review, I'm going to say this right now. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. There's some surprisingly workable things within this episode and some good thematic elements. And I do like some aspects about it more than the book, which might shock a lot of you since the popular sentiment still to this day is that people prefer the book over this episode here. But I like it quite fine. As a matter of fact, this might be one of my guilty pleasures in Goosebumps. I know how hard it is to admit those sometimes, but this is one of them, I feel. And I'll get into that in the plot overview and in the review portion. But off the bat, would I recommend Don't Go to Sleep's episode to you? Here's the thing. If you are a connoisseur of bad media, this is a shoo-in for you. You need to watch this. Maybe next to My Harry's Adventure, if you enjoy that kind of stuff. However, if you are looking for good quality stuff, like good written stories and all that, this is not going to be for you. You're going to be like cringing, gritting your teeth. Especially if you're a fan of the original book, like a big fan of it, which I don't see a lot. Those might be some unicorns out there in the community. You're probably not going to like this as much. But if you're just a casual out there and you want something entertaining to watch that make you laugh, might make you cry and cringe at the same time, then go check this out. Honestly, it's not that bad, but it's something else. And I think this is one of those situations where I just think you have to experience it to develop your own opinion on it. But take that with a grain of salt. Now, with that out the way, let's get into the plot overview of this story without giving too much away. So, like Don't Go to Sleep's book, the main character in the episode is Matt. And Matt is a 12-year-old kid. And he's at home one day. His mom, who I guess is a single mom in the story since the dad's not around, is preparing dinner for the family. And Matt oversees that his sister just got a new telephone number line for herself. And here's the thing, this is a very dated element for this episode, but back in the day, for you younger kids out there that don't know about landlines and all that, back in the day, before there were cell phones or easily accessible cell phones, you used to have multiple corded phones in your house. And you maybe had some luck here if you had the wireless ones, but you still had to have a phone jack into a phone jack outlet in your home. So what would happen is you have to run landline numbers to your house. And often than not, if you had a phone company or whatnot, I know like dial-up internet companies used to do this as well, you can pay to get your own phone number or your own extension on the number. So a lot of teenagers back in the day, they would do this to have their own private number so they can have their friends call them and not have to harass the family phone. So that's what I'm referring to here. But with that out the way, he's jealous that she got a phone, and his brother's like a talented athlete, and unlike the book, they're not really pestering him as much. They're not really jerks to him, but Matt is very envious of his older siblings who are, in the episode, look way older, and I think the older sister Pam looks like she's an adult. So I don't really know how old they're aged up here. It's never really explained, but Matt's clearly the youngest, and he kind of envies them for having the age on them to have these privileges that he doesn't have for being the youngest. And he kind of vents to his mom that, he wishes that he was older. And the mom's like, why don't you just enjoy your youth? And he's like, because it sucks. And I hate being the youngest. And, I just want what they have. And she's like, well, that's reality. You got to face it. It's just what it is, what it is. And Matt's like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, I'm going to go upstairs and explore around. And he decides to go poke up in the attic for some reason. He just wants to go up there and just vent. I think he goes up there to read comics or something in the dark and hang out. And he happens upon the couch while he's there and sees this mannequin head. He's talking to it. And while he's venting, he's like, I hate reality. It sucks. And he lays down and passes out. But when he passes out, we see as the audience that there's a weird thing going on in the attic room where it looks like the room is spinning, essentially. And when Matt wakes up from his nap, he heads back downstairs and everything seems fine, but his family's acting strange. Like, everybody's weirdly nice to him. He's getting phone calls on his own landline. His brother's complimenting him for a game performance that he did. And he's like, okay, what's up with this? And he kind of learns that he is pretty much in an alternate reality. And indirectly, but he knows that this is not what's supposed to be a thing. He learns that he is a talented hockey player, and he's going to be on the cover of a cereal box, and he has practice, or I think a game that day that he has to show up for. And when he shows up to the hockey rink, and he's like, wait, I'm not a hockey player, I don't play hockey, and they throw him on the ice, and he has all of his gear on and stuff. We see the legendary coach, Don Cherry. He's like a big-time hockey coach. I don't know if he's still around with us. He probably isn't, but I was shocked to see him in this because I didn't realize that was him for many years. But seeing him was so much fun, and he's yelling at Matt to, show off his skill, and Matt's like, I don't know how to skate. And he's like, all right, well, everybody make fun of him because he's a wuss. And we see these two men, right? And I haven't mentioned them yet, but they look just like the Men in Black from the Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith movies back in the 90s. Except here, they're played by obvious, small-time Canadian actors, and they're following Matt around, and they're wearing black suits, and they have their own jingle anytime they show up. There's a reality police jingle, and it's incredible. But they show up to the hockey rink, essentially, to mess around with him and come after him, and everybody's shooting pucks at Matt, and he's falling down on his skates, and he ends up on the ice wall trying to get away from all these players, and they dogpile him, and he realizes that this reality sucks wherever he's in, and these men are chasing him, and there might be a Zamboni involved. So he escapes through like this wormhole pocket. He doesn't have to go to sleep in this version, unlike the book where anytime he has to change realities, he has to fall back asleep. Well, anyways, he ends up in this new reality where he's in a surgery room, and he's essentially a doctor, and everybody's asking him to perform this life-saving operation on this patient, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? And they're like, well, you gotta help. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'm unqualified. And then it shoots over to another scenario where he finds himself pretty much kidnapped, I would say, by this covert ops team who takes him to this bomb. And they're like, all right, Matt, you're the bomb expert. We need to defuse this bomb. All you have to do is tell me which wire to cut. And he's like, I don't know which wire to cut. And they're bickering and, going at it. And he, before the bomb can detonate, he runs away. And then another reality kicks in where he's outside, he's wearing a suit, and he looks at his yard and he sees this wedding ceremony going on. And he's noticing that he sees relatives, even his mom is there, and they're talking about, hey, this is Matt's wedding. And he's like, what? And he goes up and meets his wife, and you see this woman, essentially, and she has some unique features to her, I should say, without being disrespectful or anything. And of course, Matt's like, oh, I'm not ready to be married, and he freaks out there. And then we get a cut of him essentially getting taken by the reality police, essentially. And the next place he winds up in is this dark lit room, and these men that he keeps seeing in these different realities that he keeps pretty much warping into kind of corner him and say that he's been under arrest for going against reality. And Matt's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, well, you're gonna find out. And they shove him into this courtroom where you have this over-the-top judge who is pretty much the presider over the reality of the universe. And he has a gavel, and he's here to judge Matt's case here. And essentially, you get the answer as to why this phenomenon is happening to Matt. The judge kind of plays back a thing that happened early on in the story that gives reason why all this is happening. And Matt's like, well, this is ridiculous. I have no reason for this to happen. I was just saying something. And then the judge is like, well, you got to deal with it now. You are guilty, and slams the gavel down on him. And we think something bad's about to happen to Matt, but Matt seemingly finds a way to possibly get himself out of the situation, which leads to the ending of the episode where Matt's back at home. He's in this attic. He sees his mom. She calls him to come down for dinner, and he's like, well, I'm glad, thinking about earlier, I'm glad to be a kid. I'm in no rush to grow older. And you see that he's had this progression throughout the story. Maybe he doesn't need to be older, but there's a plot twist involved, and I'm not going to go into any specifics there. That may or may not involve him dealing with a certain party. And I'll just leave it at that. So, and it's kind of dark too, but with that out the way, that's essentially what you're going to expect out of Don't Go to Sleep's episode. Now, this episode was a trip. I mean, story-wise, there's not a lot to it. But if I ever have seen an entertaining episode from this show, it's this. This is just bona fide entertainment. And this is kind of one of those scenarios that takes like a B movie or C movie concept and plays it up in a similar hammy fashion that made like 80s and 90s horror work in low budget settings. And it kind of eludes that on screen. Now we're getting into positives. That's the first positive, is that it has this fun aura to the whole episode, I would say. And it does carry through. It's very funny and over the top and ridiculous like horror can be. And honestly, you can see the love letter to Twilight Zone, I think, even more in this episode. than you do in the book. I think the book has a Twilight Zone type vibe to it, but the book is a direct homage to how ridiculous, shows like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, the list goes on, how those shows could have been. And it's kind of smart in that way. And you want to think that. But I think John Bell and Rick Drew, at the heart of it, know what made those shows kind of popular with fans in horror. And I think them coming on to this Goosebumps show, they just remembered back on what they saw in those shows and said, well, maybe we should just put it here. This is one of the, lesser faithful adaptations from the show. They pretty much gutted a good amount of the book and replaced it with stuff they were able to do. But this product is way more over the top, and it's entertaining. There's nothing really bad here. And I think part of that has to deal with, I think Matt in this version of the story compared to his book counterpart, he's not as whiny and he's not as entitled. All he wants is to be older. He just wants to be older to get the benefits of his siblings. But it backfires when he makes a comment that he shouldn't have made and goes on this journey where it's all themed around the idea of growing older. It fits the theme and his wishes in the beginning of the story. So there's thematic purpose with these things that he's experiencing in these realities, whether it's becoming an adult professional hockey player or whatever the case may be. I think that first one is like a kid superstar, but as time goes along, he's a skilled surgeon. He is I forget what you call him. He breaks down bombs, or he's getting married to a woman. He realizes that he's too young for this stuff, and he hasn't had a chance to enjoy his youth. So that's kind of his lesson, is that stop wishing that you were older and just enjoy your youth. Enjoy your reality that you're currently in. That's a good message to it. I think it's much more streamlined and simple than the book as well. It can be less meandering. And for the most part, I do think that the performances here were really fun, particularly with, like I brought up, Don Cherry being in this was absolutely fun. I think Matt's acting wasn't half bad at all, and the over-the-top performances from these three individuals make this episode so much fun. And I'm talking about the Men in Black, who don't really have names in this version of Don't Go to Sleep in the book. I think they were called Bruce and Wayne. And you don't have Lacey, who I guess is a tag-along to those two. But the two who play the Men in Black in this episode are just over the top and so much fun. And the Judge character is electric. Crazy, kooky. It's just addicting to watch it. I don't know what it is about this episode, but there's so many tremendous positives about it that make it enjoyable. On an enjoyment level, I love this thing in a lot of ways. But because I am also a critical mind as well, here's the thing. I've mentioned it, I haven't mentioned it in more recent installments or videos I've made, but I'm going to kind of redress something I used to say a lot in my past videos. I am mostly basing my ratings on enjoyment, but I also look at technical things that I think the book or the episode sometimes get wrong. And I have a guilty conscience for this because I know this episode has a lot of problems. And I'm going to say this up front. The problems I really do have and the ones I'm going to be harsh on. The first thing is the story's pace is way too fast. It's barreling through way too many things. I feel like, comparative to the book did spend a lot of time, especially in that back half, trying to barrel through some things. But in the episode, the pace is a little bit too brisk. I feel like they could have cut out maybe one, maybe even two of the filler realities and just kept like one or two very distinct ones that fit Matt's theme, played more into the fear of what Matt's going through, and we get to, experience more of these Men in Black. But the pace was very rushed, and that did impact the story. The story, there's not much here. There's not much here. This is a bona fide. If I've ever seen one, throw some random crap in there. Kids will watch it or buy it. Who cares? Goosebumps story if I've ever seen one. And not only did the book have that vibe, but this takes the cake for adapting it to screen. It quite literally fits in with those other Goosebumps stories that are infamous, I guess, for having that label put onto it. It does feel really random and kind of scatterbrained in terms of story. There's not a lot happening. It's just stuff happens to Matt in different realities. And that's all you're really getting here. But it's, like I said, enjoyable, but you are left wanting more. And I still feel that way about it. And another negative I have with this episode here is the editing, is the direction choice sometimes. There's some really fun shots in this episode, but there are some really bad and dated things about it in terms of editing and effects. I'm not going to mention exactly which ones here, but there's a portal effect that looked god-awful, and there's a certain scene with the judge. In fact, I think it's the only scene with him in it, but the cutaways and going from the judge to Matt is horrendous. It's not the greatest thing ever. I've seen way better editing in kids' horror shows, especially from the 90s. This stuff looks amateur, almost. And I mean no offense to John Bell and the editor of this episode, but I think you guys could have done better a bit on the editing and stuff like that. And the soundtrack, while there's some fun songs here, I think there's a great song in the wedding scene, and there's, of course, the rap when the reality police comes in. The music here, I feel, was often out of place, and it has that season 3 that you hear in all the episodes, and it comes off out of place for this story. It's not scary like that. It's not shocking. You don't need to play suspenseful music when you have a kid just and just doing that you don't see what's in front of him, or a cutaway or a scream even. It's just him just making a facial expression, obscenely loud. Like, why? Why? It's ridiculous. But I can kind of see maybe why they used to do that in the 90s. They want to make it sound scarier than it actually is. But besides those negatives, y'all, I do think that there's some genuine good to be had here. It's not great. It's not very good. And I'll be upfront with that. So I guess we'll get into my rating. It's not getting higher than a 4 at all. However, I do think that the qualities in this episode that can be considered bad, or maybe bad taste. I mean, we can get into the subjective stuff, like maybe the appearance of the bride, or maybe how kind of cringy the hockey scenes come across in the little things here, but I'm not going to beat those up because I think they're funny in this episode specifically here. But if you wanted to, I could totally see why you would put this lower than a C. But for me, especially given everything else we got in the 90s show, and at this point I've seen all the episodes, y'all. I've seen them all. This episode's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not meh. I actually think it's mildly fine, low good. You know, so bad it's good. I don't even think that's a fair thing to call it. I think it's actually genuinely fine. There's nothing really wrong with it constructively. The only thing is just that it's crazy. It's all over the place. It's zany. It lacks story, but it's still fun. You know? So I can commend it for that. But I have a ceiling with it, and you'll see my ceiling from a 0 to 5 star basis. And I think I'm gonna give this score because I think the book deserves a better score, ironically. But I'm gonna give this maybe a 3.5 or a 3.6 out of 5. You know what? I'll give it the same score as the book, and here's why. I'll give this a 3.6 out of 5 stars. The book has tremendous potential, but this is just pure fun, right? I think the book had potential but didn't execute it all that well. But the episode here, it didn't have much to work with, but it was entertaining and memorable. And I love it in some regards. I really don't like it in some regards. And I find myself entertained at the end of the day. And if I'm speaking from the entertainment piece of my heart. There's a lot to love here for me with this episode. And I totally get if you don't like this episode as much, that's fine. But I still really enjoy this. I think a little bit more than I did when I was a kid, actually. It's just dumb fun, entertaining. If we're going to be goofy and silly, at least it has that. At least it's still kind of sticking true to the book spirit. I think it's very humorous in the book as well, especially given what Matt is going through in his monologue. It's mostly true, just a little bit different. But yeah, it's harmless fun, in my opinion. Take it for what you will. You might, like I said, you might like it more, you might not. But I think this one is going to be one of those episodes, and it's just one of those stories inherently that are just going to vary with people. And give it a shot, especially if you're curious out there. Don't take my word for it. Just go watch it yourself, see if you like it. But in case you have watched it, that's my thoughts on Don't Go to Sleep. Let me know down in the comment section if you've seen it before. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'm dying to know. I'll see you next time.